Those out-of-body experiences, especially at night. I found myself in front of Satan.
Whoa.
I was seeing demons now for the first time in real life.
How would you know these are demons if you saw them?
By the way they look, because they were just pale, like I would describe maybe this color. Yes, they're in ranks. Now the demons are like the servants, the slaves. Now when they see a human being, it's like they all want to come and touch and see you and me. By then I'm scared, I'm screaming for my life.
At 8 years, Erica Mukisa was introduced to witchcraft by her grandmother, and for 18 years she served Lucifer. And today she's going to give us a life testimony of how she broke free from those dark forces, and also she'll explain to us how to protect ourselves from dark forces. Welcome to today's episode of Candid with Yvonne. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right, so let's start from the beginning. I know you're not Kenyan, so which part of Uganda do you come from?
I'm from Uganda, Ginger.
Ginger.
Yes.
How was life growing up?
Life growing up was good for me up to a certain point when I started now experiencing spiritual attacks. But I grew up in a Christian family.
Right.
My dad and mom were born again. The only thing I remember, most of the things I remember about childhood is my dad loved my mom so much. So they really took good care of us until when we started now visiting our relatives. Yeah, that's when I started getting a glimpse of the other side of life, you know. That's when I started now realizing that life is spiritual.
Right.
My grandmother, the mother to my dad, was a high-level sorcerer. And that was her way of living. She thought that that was the family way of surviving, because she was making money out of it. She would get people from different circles of life, politicians, musicians, businessmen, consulting with her, and all that would bring money to the family. So she started now controlling the community because of her powers and influence. And to her, that was life. That was a way of living, because she grew up seeing our great-grandparents practicing sorcery, and she also had to buy some powers and to add to what we had in the family. Yeah, so that was her way of living.
When you're saying controlling
the community,
yeah, what do you mean?
I think, I don't know how, if here in Kenya people have heard of rainmakers, like people who, like when somebody is going to have a concert, there are some people they have to consult so that on that day it doesn't rain. So my grandmother was that kind of person who people would consult, because if they were going to stage, let's say, a show in our area and she has not been consulted, that day it would rain. So people used to take sacrifices to her. They used to take money, businesses. If a person wanted to have influence in that area, they had to be in good terms with her. Yeah. Wow. So for her, that was the way of living that she knew. And being her only granddaughter, she wanted me to inherit after her. So my dad rebelled against my grandmother when he was about 18, because he got saved that time. And according to my grandmother, my dad was like a prodigal son, because he rejected the family witchcraft. Now, she knew very well that my father had an idea of what she was involving herself into, and he never wanted me to be part of it. So, because I had to visit her during holidays, she started the process of initiating me from when I was young. So the time I got to know that my grandmother is initiating me into her witchcraft is when she took me to a graveyard. And on that graveyard, she introduced me to the ancestors, ancestral spirits like she started naming the lineage. I'm so and so, daughter of so and so, you know. So I brought my granddaughter so that when I die, you work with her, just like you've worked with me.
How old were you at this time?
That time I was 8. So now, that's when it dawned that, hey, grandmother is deep, because I was hearing voices from the grave. And it was at a point where I could not do anything. I was now helpless because she had already been initiating me. So now this opened up my life to astral projection.
What does that mean?
It means a person getting out of their body and being sent for missions, because we are spirit beings in as much as we are in our bodies. So I started now getting those out of body experiences, especially at night. And as a child, it opened my life up to fear. I was always scared of everything. And it started now affecting my performance, because I used to perform very well in class. But now, because of that, I started falling sick all the time. I was very frightened of everything. Then my habits also in class changed to a point that even the teachers were scared of disciplining me. Why? Is because if they punished me in case I did something wrong, I would attack them at night.
Oh Lord, would they know it's you?
They would see me and they think they are dreaming. Like for example, I hit a teacher at night. She beat me in class. I beat her in her sleep. She woke up, the eye was swollen. And you know, there's no way you can explain to another teacher that my eye is swollen because of my student. They'll say, you have something against that student.
Right.
Yeah, so it happened like that. So now, because now teachers were afraid of disciplining me, I was experiencing different changes in my body. I was afraid of things. I would just be in a room and start screaming, and my parents come and I'm telling them some things I was able to see, and they don't understand it, because many Christians don't understand that life, actually not only Christians, but people don't understand that life is spiritual.
Yeah.
So my mom started counseling me. They started, they didn't know much of spiritual warfare by then. Yeah, so until I was 11, I started doing things that are beyond my age. For example, going to schools and asking for, like, I went to a certain school and I spoke to the headmistress and I requested her to allow me join the school without my parents. And that's the school I had been wanting to go to. At 11? Yes. So when I convinced her, she requested me to invite my parents to the school, Victoria Nile Primary School, and then I joined. Yeah, but people were wondering the things I was doing. They were not for a child. It got to a point where I started now becoming a threat to my grandmother, because she initiated me, but I started now becoming stronger than her. Yeah, and even her mother had initiated her, and at some point she became stronger, and they ended up having a fight, and her mother died in the process.
So you would say she's the one who killed the mom?
Yes.
Oh Lord.
So she saw me as a threat. Now she's the one who initiated me, and now she had turned me into her enemy. So my life became worse because I was sickly, until when that time when I joined that school, I went for holidays at my auntie's place. My dad has a sister. My auntie is an influential person because she's in the medical sector, and she's also into sorcery. It's just recently that she's beginning to realize that these things they are useless. So she's also trying to come out. She's in the process. But she was working for reproductive health. Yeah, so she was working for the enemy, but in the medical sector. And they also wanted me to work and serve in the kingdom of darkness, because that's the way the family was surviving. I was supposed to she wanted to connect me with some big organization so that we promote a certain agenda. I think maybe because this is a public platform, but something to do with homosexuality, LGBT, because that has been in their plan for a long time. So, and my aunt was looking at me. She wanted me to study, and then she would connect me because she had the connections. So now she invited me to spend the first term holidays. I was in my primary 7 at her place. And when I visited her, she introduced me to a world I had never been in, because coming from a Christian family, there are some values that you have at home. Some movies you won't watch, some music you won't listen to, some places you won't go. So my auntie now introduced me to partying. She introduced me to wines and alcohol, because she had everything in her house. She introduced me to that life of partying, and to me as a youth, that was what I needed, you know, because I had been stressed out through my childhood because of witchcraft. So now I'm going to my auntie's place, and there is everything that a youth feels like
would be excited about.
So she would tell me, if you want your parents to allow you come visit me, don't tell them what we do when you come here. And I kept it a secret until when my little brother joined us, and he would say, Dad said that music is bad. Dad said drinking alcohol is bad. I would look at him like a burden, you know, he's coming to tell on me. So my aunt introduced me to that life, and that's how she introduced me to the secular artists in our country. For me, I thought that was an opportunity, because these are people we would be watching on TV, and then radio, you listen to their music. So when my aunt introduced me to that life, I felt it was an opportunity for me to shine, because I also loved music. But I didn't know that behind secular music, the enemy is targeting people's souls. So, and I was also by then among the target. So
when you were introduced to this secular artist, did you meet him, or did you
the first time I met with his brother, and then there are some other friends of theirs. But me, because I loved this musician, I loved his music, by then he was trending. I longed to one day see him, until when we left my auntie's place, we went back home. I learned that he had a concert, and the venue was just next to our home. Actually, we documented the places. We were showing people the distance. So before they would stage any concert, they would move around advertising, and that would attract people to run towards their convoy to the venue. And I was among the people that were attracted to run with my little brother. It was against my parents' will, because they would always tell us not to follow strangers. But because people were running after the convoy, we were also tempted too. But we got to a place called St. Jude, and at that place, at that particular spot, is where I met that musician and his brother with their group. They had like 3 vehicles parked, and people were fighting to see him, because after he sang, he sat in his vehicle, and people were just, the crowd was, you know, gathering. And I managed to pull through the crowd. I wanted to see the musician and go back home, because I knew there was no way my parents are going to allow me to go to the concert. And what made it easier for me is I knew the brother. We had met through my auntie. So in the process of excitement, I felt, you know, like I used to astral project. I would get out of my body and come back into my body. This time, the experience was different. I just felt myself getting out of me, but I did not know how to explain, because I was feeling like now I'm getting into a trap.
Oh.
Yes, and I was holding my brother's hand, like, so, you know, like when you're scared.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then to make matters worse, we were pushed, you know, as the crowd is struggling.
Yeah.
And I go to the car. Getting to the car, instead of seeing this musician that I had gone to see, I was seeing myself inside the car with the musician. And then I'm standing out here, I'm looking at myself and my brother, and I'm wondering what's happening to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so as I was still in that situation of wondering, this musician gets out through the open roof, and he tells me to enter the car with my brother. And my brother is holding my hand. He's like, no, don't. You don't have to enter this man's car. We don't know him. Daddy said don't enter a stranger's car. But because now my life is in bondage, everything they tell me to do, I do. Yeah, so from there we were struggling. We had a caretaker, someone who was taking care of us. She came, but even if she came for my body, my soul had already been caged. To a point that when we went home, physically, I fainted, but my soul was understanding everything, because we even passed by home. We went to Lake Victoria with this musician. Now, him physically, the first initiation was with my soul. Then later, I started now working with them, knowing what we were doing, because what the enemy targets in a person is the soul, because the soul, it has the mind, the emotions, the will, the intellect is in this. Everything we do comes from within us.
Yes.
Yeah, so now that's how we went to Lake Victoria. We went through the golf course. I've tried to document some of these things. Yeah, so we went through the golf course, and we went to a certain island on that River Nile. Yeah, and around that place is they show where John Speak stood and discovered. Is it River Nile or Lake Victoria? Something like, yeah. So that is the place where we went.
So
and
what happened when you got there?
When we got there, to my surprise, I thought maybe what I had seen was enough, but I didn't know that I was now going deeper. You know, when we read the Bible, we read about Satan, we read about God, people just take things lightly. Yeah, sometimes when you're reading the fall of man, you're reading about a snake talking to a woman and things like that. You're like, maybe these are just stories.
Yeah, that happened.
Yes, yeah, maybe they just want to entertain us. Sometimes, you know, like in Sunday school, those drawings, I never took those things seriously until now, when we go to that place. And I saw this musician performing rituals on that River Nile, and then he started enchanting, and I saw the waters giving way. And in the process of the water giving way, something came from under the water. Later, I realized it was fish. The size of that fish, I could say, it swallows like about 15 people.
Whoa. That's
the size, yeah. But that water, even when I went to document, I think I'll show you some of the footage. But when I went to document, you would see that in that particular place, the water flows differently. It's like there is a hole right there. It's like there is a door.
That no one can explain what happened.
Even the tour guides, when they are explaining, they say, we don't understand what happened here, because the way it flows around this place is different. Yeah, so now this musician entered with me, and I found myself in a new world. Like I found myself in front of Satan.
Whoa.
I found now myself in a world. It's a world, a different world altogether, but full of like different activities. Everyone is busy. I was seeing demons now for the first time in real life.
How would you know these are demons if you saw them?
By the way they look, because they were just pale, like I would describe maybe this color, yes. And then like they are so primitive. You know, I can describe demons and fallen angels. because they're in ranks. Now the demons are like the servants, the slaves. Now when they see a human being, it's like they all want to come and touch and see you and me. By then I'm scared, I'm screaming for my life. They are ugly beings. Yeah, and then the people there, everyone is minding their business. Once you've been set up, you're on your own. So if you rebel, you just have to do whatever you're instructed to do.
Yeah, because first of all, you're scared.
Yes. If you rebel, they can kill you because now they're in control. Because the Bible says that Satan came to steal, kill, and to destroy. Yeah, so now I was encountering things that I didn't have any idea about. And I know many people have no idea that life is spiritual. That's now when I was seeing now. I did not see everything on that same day, but the day I arrived, I saw we were entering like you know, you're entering a compound, but there are gates, and these gates are in form of rocks. And even when I had recently, when I went to document, the guys were telling us that down below there are rocks. So it was connecting to what I saw. So the 7 gates, but in form of rocks, opening, and then now I find myself in a place that is like a hole, and in front of me I'm seeing a being that hates any form of human being. Like, just because you are a human being created in God's image is enough for Satan to hate you. You don't have to do anything. This is Satan, you just know, because life is spiritual. You just know him just by looking at him. The hatred, the amount of hatred in the eyes, the amount of fear that you have at that point. And then to make matters worse, I was seeing him drinking blood and eating human flesh. So that's when I knew that, you see, these fallen angels, God is no longer providing food for them. So they are farming human beings. That's why you see accidents. There's so much happening and demand for blood in their kingdom.
Did Lucifer talk to you that time you went there?
The first way of welcoming me was a huge laughter, like someone mocking you, you know? Yes. And there I knew that there was nothing I could do, because I was crying, Mommy, Daddy, and he was telling me that not even your government can set you free, because I control the governments. I control the banks, I control the world. So where are you going to report me? So you think by calling your mother can come and do anything here? And I didn't know that in Zechariah 9:11, God had paved a way for me through the blood of Jesus. I had no idea that through prayer I could get delivered. That's why it's important for parents to teach their children how to pray and how to call upon the name Jesus. Because if I knew that, instead of wasting my time calling them, I would have tried to call the name Jesus. But I had no idea. I was used to calling Mommy for everything.
Of course.
Yeah, so now it's from that time that my life changed. I started now serving the devil knowingly, because they were controlling my soul and my body at the same time. I had no control over my body. What people would see was a possessed person.
And you didn't know that you were possessed at that point?
I knew now. I knew that I was possessed.
Were you willing to leave this at that point?
I would love to. At that point, I would have loved to get out. But now, I was no longer in control of myself. And what people would see is me hanging out with these celebrities. And they would see me, you know, in those concerts. They would see me performing for telecom companies. They would see me, you know, do things, but they wouldn't know that I was being controlled and I was serving the enemy until when I was 18. Yeah, so from 11 to 18. Before you tell us how you got set free, you're telling me that you were serving the enemy. What roles were you given? Now, because the time they initiated me, I was young. I started by initiating students in schools. Yeah, then I started now working for some companies on promotions. Yes, we would promote products for companies that have signed with the enemy. Yeah, and then especially me, I wanted to work with telecom companies. Yeah. So now I started now partying with the secular artists, influencing the youth to go to clubs, do all those kinds of things, take people's money. Like, for example, if you went with your friends to club and there's this gentleman who's like coming to pose like he has money, us, we would make sure he goes back without anything. Because first of all, I was using witchcraft. So a person maybe got some salary and then he enters club. Before he realizes he's out of club, he has no shoes, he has nothing. And he doesn't know how it happened, because by the time you go to work for a month and then you earn, you're brilliant enough to protect yourself. But all the things that happen, most of them that happen in clubs, people don't know that there are people who are using witchcraft.
Wow.
Yeah, so us, the things we were doing were just to destroy people's lives, basically. And then initiate other people, especially men. It's very easy to initiate someone who is not in their right mind.
How would you do that?
Through drinks, through if a man is lasting for you, it is very easy to steal their destiny, because what the enemy wants is to steal the destinies of people. He cannot create a life or a destiny, but he steals. And then a person works like a slave. You work so hard, and then another person comes at your place of work, that person is promoted. But you're working, and it's like nobody realizes.
Recognizes
yes. Yeah, so many things, breaking families, because you would not interact with us and go back home in your right mind. You start now looking at your wife differently. Yeah.
And you can't explain why you do.
You can't explain why. You feel like now you want another kind of life. You don't want a settled life. You feel like settled life is boring. Yeah, so we would do so much, causing accidents. In fact, even in that documentary, I was showing people places where we would cause accidents.
Were you part of it?
Yeah, because now I knew what I was doing fully. So when my parents would take me to church, and whenever I would go to church and I feel like I have been drained, I don't have power anymore to serve in the kingdom of darkness, I had to do a sacrifice. And that sacrifice, I would just feel annoyed until when I see blood coming out of somebody. So now I would go and cause accidents. And some of them I would cause when my parents are seeing, but they wouldn't know that I was responsible. They would just say, we survived an accident.
Oh, so you would cause an accident in a car?
Not in a car. We would be just walking, and I just stand in a place, and they are calling me. It's like I'm not there.
Responding.
Yes, I'm not responding. You know, like you're in a trance. And then before they know, an accident. Yeah, and then they come and hold me. They think I'm maybe shocked because of what I have seen. But I know very well what I have been doing, because whenever I would see the blood coming out of the person, the spirits that were controlling my life would get empowered. Then I would be able to do whatever I've been assigned to do. Because now it's like I was working on a remote.
So how was your mom relating with you this time when you're actually just doing things in the spiritual realm?
From the time I got initiated, my friendship with my mom cut off. We just became friends after my deliverance.
Okay.
Yeah, and it took time for the friendship to be cemented again.
So it's safe to say you are a rebellious daughter at that point?
Yes, I was prodigal.
Wow. Yeah. So you're saying whenever you would go to church with your parents, you would feel drained. Is there a reason why that would be the case?
I hated places where they were praying, you know, places where they were talking about God and condemning the enemy, and yeah.
So you're saying
I
prayer
would
is
feel
important,
uncomfortable. Yes.
especially if you have to protect yourself against the dark forces.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's very important. Yeah.
One thing that's very interesting about this is because you're revealing secrets of the enemy, which makes us at an advantage, because then we would know exactly what to do.
With.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that wraps up the part 1 of this story. When we come back, we will tell you exactly how she got liberated from the dark forces.